Okay, so this is super exciting. Frequently, we only really get to work as an editor. I usually am working with something that is subpar, but today I get to look over something really excellent. It's always a treat. There's way too much teaching that happens out of the negative, like here's what not to do, and definitely not enough examination in my mind of stuff that's done really well. So this page, Jacob, is phenomenal. I can really tell that you are a top-notch designer. The design of this is absolutely beautiful, but the story that you use in this is also really really good, and that's what we teach here in Thoroughbred and what we're putting together for our program. So the first thing to keep in mind is that this is a generic page. This is literally just their website. This is the opening website. This isn't a specialized for a single product or service. This is a generic page, and so it's going to be limited. But in spite of that, look at all this great stuff he does. So instantly, we know what the service is that he does right here. Build a brand your customers will love. He's got 3 points under it, and then just brilliant. He's got his name and a title that reinforces everything you just read, and that might slip into your hindbrain without you even noticing it. But really important, he's also got his face here, and it's nicely set off. It's not like a halo or something funky, but it's nicely set off. And look at this beautiful eye drawing curve here. I'm gonna save some comments on the design, but this is just juicy. How he uses the pink here as the action steps is really good. A little bit of an odd visual bug on the screen with that, but it's relatively minor. Just draws the eye right along over to this action button. This big blocky font really stands out in both the negative and positive on this button. Oh, it's very good. But instantly, you can more or less instantly tell exactly what he's doing, what this website is about, why you're here, probably all this. But even so, on this first web page, he's got some really important basics covered. He's got the why of his service and the evidence right down here along the bar, as seen on all these different brands, right? This is great. But most importantly, he's got this navigation bar up here. He's got the headline here with the company name, and over here he's got this navigation bar. Really important for a basic website. It's really important because people are going to be landing on this to accomplish all sorts of different things. You want them to immediately have access to those buttons, but you also want the new person who's barely heard of you, maybe just got recommended your services or something, and they came to check you out, needs to be able to see instantly who you are, what you're about, and all of that. And we'll get a little bit more into some of the longer game, the story game, here in a second. But he's got exploration and navigation both covered here, which is great. I want to highlight again the clear action cues, contact, view portfolio. This kind of continues where the pink is really used to highlight. You see how he's in grayscale? That's a conscious choice. Like, this is awesome. Like, just first impression, this is so good. All right. But anyway, now I want to talk about some of the story of this, which, this is so good. So, the first thing he does is kind of a who, what, right? He establishes who he is, what he does, kind of the why you're here kind of stuff immediately. And then he immediately launches into building trust, as seen on, look at all these big brands that you might not have heard of all of them. Like, this one's probably a little country specific for him, but he immediately starts building trust. And then going down, and he's got another example. This is a whole product line. You see how they're all unified. They're all recognizable. They stand out without being really obnoxious about it. Like, you see, this is clearly a design that he's proud of and that works pretty well. I love how these little fruits pop off the label because they're on the dual color background and they're this division point. It's really good. Anyway, and then right here, we design brands that stand out and get results, right? as seen on these, this is a real brand. This isn't like a fake thing that he's doctored up. And then after he sort of has begun establishing trust that way, he comes in here and establishes trust another way with a little bit of what I'll call teaching. We've got a little bit of teaching here, and the teaching also serves to kind of establish a fence. Like, this is what I do. I don't do maybe this other stuff you might have heard of. This is what I do. And he's got these 3 points, right? And that's what he wants to get. That's what he wants to attract. That's who he wants to appeal to, is people that are interested or need that. And he sort of sows seeds by explaining what this is and what it accomplishes. This copy here is maybe a little bit chunky, like it's a little long, but if you look at it, it's dense, right? This is pretty solid copy here. There's not wasted words, so even though it's a little long, it's fine. We've got these other kind of code words here that really indicate what he's talking about. So he's hitting this from multiple angles and really making good use of his space here. But this is great, how he sets up kind of this prose explanation, and then he gives you a clear, solid visual of what exactly he's talking about. And some of them are more like buzzword sort of things, and others of them are exactly, you can picture them explicitly, what he's doing here. So this is great. I don't love this, but that's probably a limitation of the text block. I think that's probably more technological than anything else. I'm not exactly sure why these are set off that way, but like I said, I'm not sure that's even really a mistake. It's just a personal preference on my account. And once again, we've got these pink action things, really simple logos so that you get an image in your head. And then once again, we've got the action right there. I do want to go back and just do this here. So we've got a couple of cues here. We've got the Sydney Morning Herald here. And that's a little bit indicative that he might have done some work in Australia. And here's another tip, another kind of indication. We've got better connect with your customers, and that might be a little colloquial, but as far as the global audience is concerned, because clearly he's global, right? He's got some real big brands, right? These are all global brands, I would imagine. I'm pretty sure. And if you just swap these two words, right, all the pieces are there, but just a little tweak, I think connect better with your customers, because you want to emphasize the verb here, not the modifier. So we've got here, grow your business faster, brand your business the strategic way. We want to have it be connect better with your customers. You definitely want to tweak that, I would say. Because we want this to be active, we want to send that message, and we want to be consistent across all 3 points so that we build trust and people kind of know what's happening and they start to fill in the blanks themselves. That's how you really connect with people. And so this, to me, I would bet that most of this came, as far as the copy goes, I would bet most of this came fairly naturally, not through a ton of study. I'll bet this is all kind of gut check, because it's solid. Right? Very, very simple, straightforward language. It's excellent. This is probably learned through a lot of trial and error, or maybe even working with a professional team to build a page like this. But this is somebody that clearly knows their stuff, and obviously this whole page is about that. A little bit meta. So anyway, to remember, we've got the who, what, why going on up here, and then we start building trust, right, in several different ways. And then we reach this section right here, which is kind of the offer to transform. It's saying, hey, you might be at fault. You take responsibility. So there's a certain amount of professionalism that they're calling their clients. So they're kind of already pre-vetting people that... the site's already kind of pre-vetting some of those troublesome clients that you don't really want to work with, and it's inviting people to kind of level up themselves. Right? You got this 2 column here, so we got this in the negative and then this in the positive. Great. Right? We've already got a kind of small micro story right in here. We've got the contrast of kind of the bad, the divided strategy and design, and it's got this nice nexus here in the middle. And that segues over into, the transformed person, reaching your goals. And here's how you do it. We'll have this free discovery call, then we'll go through this design process and strategy, and then your business will grow. And it's that simple. And it's straightforward. It's really good. We've got these clean, simple, solid. None of this looks really overworked. This is all just very deliberate, precise language. It's really good. You'll note he uses both the bold here and the italics here. So the italics here actually serve as almost a diminutive. And we've also got these bold here, but look at what he's bolding. He's bolding the things that just set. If you were just skimming, you would just boom right through those bolded things. They're not just huge and black. You notice he's bolded them into a sort of gray. Really good visual here to really make things like this strategy and design and these titles. You see how skimmable that makes this all. It's really good. And then even standout brand down here, like he's really hitting those words that are really going to motivate people and give them a really good idea of exactly what he's talking about. Those core words to each sentence are bolded. And he never does more than one per, here we go. Here we have two, but he never does more than one like theme per sentence. It's really good. Really, really good. You can take a lot of notes off just this section. But this section essentially is an offer to transform, and once again includes this pink call to action. It's really good. So this is what I would call the end of the first story, right? By here, he has completed a 3-part sort of story program in addition to essentials like this bar up at the top. He's completed this 3-part story that literally lines up with one of the types of stories I teach, which I call the persuasive method, which is emotional connection, then practical advice, and then a paradigm shift. And this here is the paradigm shift section right here. But if you look back here, we've got an emotional connection. You got a smiling guy here. You learn his name. You see what he's about. And then what I called the building trust or establishing trust is also a practical advice, right? He's giving away like this is how you do it. Branding begins with strategy, not design. That's a very practical piece of advice for success. And things like this is all just advice, and that segues over into this paradigm shift, right? And that's what this goes into. It's really well designed, and this is what I consider one of the strongest simple templates that we teach. And I can't believe I've found it again. It seems like every time I talk with professionals, we've all kind of arrived at this point where we found things that work, and they're really just variations on this core theme. So I'm really excited to get to look over this. But then there's more to this website, and this is really exciting. So we've got a little bit of a poetic echo here with brands we've worked with. So it's not directly the same as seen on, right? But it's the same type of thing. So we've got a repetition, and this is the beginning of what I call the second story. So the first one was pretty positive on the whole, and this one actually kind of ends with this negative or a reminder of the looming threat that every business faces. So here we have a establishing authority. Here's him teaching, right? He's in that same t-shirt, I think. And here's brands I've worked with, and then who we work with. And this is all really intimate language, right? Some of it's jargon, but ultimately this is really trying to reach each one of these groups individually in the language that they use. This type of precision is really, really awesome to see, because you've got, several of these you might say, wait, that's the same thing. But if you view yourself as a freelancer or as a one-man band or as a small business entrepreneur, that one's going to sing out to you. And he's done a really good job, hitting a lot of these angles, and it's great. So looking at this, we've got establishing, his authority right here, who he works with, all of this, and kind of vetting, are you one of these people? And this is this section acts like it's shunting people away. So it's essentially inviting that target audience and saying, hey, no, you can come into the clubhouse. It's a really, really good. So establish authority, and then we've got demonstrating the relevance with these different brands here, and anybody who views themselves as one of these is definitely going to look at these brands and go, yeah, I want to be like those, right? I want to be like these people. And here we've got this view portfolio again, and every time you mouse over one of these, in case maybe you don't recognize one, it leads over to his portfolio. It leads over to demonstrate, hey, here's what I do. Here's evidence, right? He doesn't say, here, buy my stuff. He says, here's evidence that I can help. Here's evidence. This is great. This is absolutely great. Because he has really made the flip from writing about his interests to writing stuff that his audience is going to want to see. This is really audience-focused writing, and it's great. Most of the work is design. You notice that as a designer, he's leaning heavily on these complex design elements, right? Rather than on copy. If you're a writer, you're going to probably want to showcase your writing talent to do all this. But he is using design because that's his talent. And that's a really key, important takeaway as well. You want to play to your strengths. Don't necessarily feel like you have to go and mime someone else. If your strengths are over here, make that work. And you do that with the power of story. You can tell these same stories in your manner and your voice. And that's what's really important. Because all of this essentially is a showcase of him, right? It's a service-based business. Perfect, right? So anyway, so he's demonstrated relevance, and now he's coming down here. We've got projecting the future, right? This is what it's like to work with me. This is what it's like to work with us. And it's free. Just come click on this. Just come over here and click this button, right? You want this, right? Very, very, very persuasive, right? He's got once more these really shiny pictures over here. They're great. And then he's got this, which is possibly the most brilliant thing yet. This is great, right? Years experience. He knows what he's doing. He's been successful. He's won awards. He's been recognized. People know him and like him. He's been in a bunch of different places, so he's used to working with wherever you're coming from. Lots of happy customers. And then boom, this is such a brilliant design element. I wish I could come up with something this brilliant for every one of my clients. This is so good. One phone call away. And if you read that bar across and you're like feeling that one phone call is all, oh man, that's such a good element for convincing people. It's so good, especially with this pink button right close by. That's very good. And it really puts you in the mindset of, I want to call him. And then these testimonials, these little bits here, great. So we've segued from demonstrating the relevance of his art to, once again, just smooth as butter over into projecting the future. Like, this is what it's like to work with us. This is exactly... These are real people, right? We've got these explicit, these brands. We've got more. Go look at them. We've got more if you're not convinced, right? Then on the way out, he just includes a bunch of freebies, essentially. Here's the blog posts. Here's some featured resources. This is free, right? See all this type of stuff. A case study over here, pricing over here for the people that are like, oh man, I'm not sure if I could afford that. Is it worth it? Is it efficient for where I'm at as a business person right now? And then last, we've got another strong CTA. You notice how it's all pink and lit up. You notice how these free resources, there's these pink elements involved, right? And this book your free call now. And once again, great. And we've got more navigation at the bottom, right kind of where it needs to be. So this is a really good page. Certainly one to be proud of. There's very, very little to improve on, and this is one of the only major elements right here. This better connect with your customers, connect better with your customers. You definitely want to highlight the verb here. But as far as the copy goes, this is fairly clean. I could probably get nitpicky, but this is definitely an A-grade page. which is pretty rare for me to stumble across. There are definitely some AAA brands that do not have pages as good as this. This is phenomenal. And a pleasure to dissect for you. I hope you've gotten some good value out of this. But notice how he used two contrasting. He used a positive story in this first thing, right? He's using things like stand out, get results, teaching, this real like top down mentality here. And then down here, he's using this exclusionary. And so he kind of comes from both sides. It's this really balanced yin yang approach. And so anybody that doesn't come in from this positive perspective might read down and so the people that are kind of self disqualifying here actually come down here and kind of it's this really clever bait and switch where he welcomes those self disqualifiers in and says you can be like these people, because he's got these really powerful internationally recognized brands here, and then he sort of segues it into these slightly smaller brands here that maybe you haven't heard of, these little more unique ones. And so he's really kind of trying to bring those people that are self-disqualifying in and just say, hey, you can work with us too. And it's this really, really good mix. But he uses multiple of these story templates that we teach about. Good job, Jacob. This is a phenomenal page. Pleasure to look at and evaluate. And as from one artist to another, really good stuff here.